over the Haley Dunn case out of Colorado City in hopes of providing justice.
Life of Haley Dunn, while the man accused of killing the 13-year-old girl is blocks away and it's released.
Why in the world has this happened? Why is Sean out?
On the morning after Christmas, Haley woke up in a house that felt like any other, quiet, familiar, safe, and stepped into a day that would never properly end. There was nothing unusual about the way she moved through those early hours, nothing that hinted at how suddenly her name would spread far beyond her small town. If you had passed her on the street that day, you wouldn't have looked twice. But by nightfall, people would begin asking the same question over and over again: where is Haley? Her full name was Haley Dunn, and she was just 13 years old. Haley lived in Colorado City, Texas, a quiet, tight-knit community where people knew each other by name and routines rarely changed. With a population of under 4,000 at the time, it was the kind of place where parents felt comfortable letting their kids walk down the street alone, where neighbors waved from porches, and where news traveled fast. It was also the kind of place where something like this simply wasn't supposed to happen. To understand what was lost, you have to understand who Haley was before she became a headline. She wasn't just a missing girl, she was energy in motion. Her father, Clint Dunn, described her as a tomboy with a twist, someone who could spend the afternoon playing sports and still love anything glittery or bright. She had this way of balancing contradictions that made her memorable. One moment she was competitive and focused, the next she was joking around, making people laugh with quick, playful comments that came naturally to her. Friends remembered her as fearless in conversation. Haley wasn't the type to stay quiet just to keep the peace. If she had something to say, she said it. Not in a harsh way, but in a way that made it clear she knew who she was, even at 13. She loved school, not just the social side, but the rhythm of it, the structure, the sense that every day brought something new. By 8th grade, she had already built a life filled with activity. She played volleyball, basketball, and softball, pushing herself not just to participate, but to compete. Teammates described her as driven, someone who didn't like losing but didn't take herself too seriously either. Music was another part of her world. Haley played the saxophone, adding another layer to a personality that refused to be one-dimensional. Sports, music, school, she moved between them easily, like someone already figuring out how to build a full life. At home, things were more complicated. Her parents, Clint and Billie Jean Dunn, had separated when Haley was around 10 years old. After the split, Haley and her older brother David lived primarily with their mother. Billie Jean's boyfriend, Sean Atkins, was also part of the household, a presence that, according to some accounts, Haley never fully embraced. Despite the separation, Haley's bond with her father remained strong. Clint lived just across the road, and Haley made a habit of stopping by every single day. It didn't matter if it was before school, after school, or just for a quick visit, she found reasons to be there. Sometimes it was just to say hello. Other times she would stay for dinner, talking about her day in that easy, open way that came naturally to her. Those small, daily moments became the foundation of their relationship. Clint later described those visits not as routine, but as something he came to depend on. Haley wasn't just part of his life, she was a constant in it, a presence that made everything feel steady. Christmas in 2010 had been no different. Haley spent the holiday surrounded by family, moving between homes the way she always did. According to her grandmother, she was in good spirits, excited, laughing, fully herself. One of her favorite gifts that year was a new iPod, something she reportedly spent hours exploring, filling with music, making it her own. There was nothing about those days that felt like an ending. On December 26th, the day after Christmas, Haley spent much of her time at her father's house. It was familiar, comfortable, a continuation of the same rhythm she had always known. Later that evening, her older brother David left for a sleepover at a friend's house, leaving Haley at home. It wasn't unusual. At 13, Haley was old enough to spend time alone for short periods. She stayed up playing video games, passing the time the way many teenagers do during the holiday break. There was no indication that anything was wrong, no sign of fear, no suggestion that she felt unsafe. Just a normal night. The next morning, December 27th, began quietly. According to her mother, Haley was still asleep when she left for work. Everything appeared ordinary. There was no rush, no tension, no reason to think that anything was about to change. The assumption was simple. When Haley woke up, she would go about her day as usual, likely walking over to her father's house at some point, just like she always did. But that didn't happen. As the hours passed, something subtle began to shift. Clint noticed it first, not as panic but as absence. Haley didn't come by that day. At first, it didn't seem like much. There were reasonable explanations. Maybe she was busy, maybe she had made other plans. In a small town where routines were predictable, a single missed visit wasn't immediately alarming. But as the day continued, the silence stretched. There were no calls, no messages, no sudden appearance at the door with a casual explanation. Just nothing. By the afternoon, a text message was reportedly sent from the phone left at the house. It read simply, "WI, what you doing?" It was sent to one of Haley's friends. The message itself didn't raise immediate concern. It sounded like something Haley might say, casual, unremarkable. But the friend never replied, and no further messages followed. As evening approached, the situation became harder to ignore. When Haley's mother returned home, she realized Haley wasn't there. At first, there was an explanation offered, one that suggested Haley had gone to her father's house and planned to stay the night with a friend. But that explanation didn't hold. Clint hadn't seen her. The friend hadn't seen her. And suddenly, the absence wasn't just unusual, it was impossible to explain. The house still held all the small details of her life. Her belongings were untouched. Nothing suggested she had packed up or prepared to leave for any extended period. It was as if she had simply stepped out for a moment and never come back. What began as a quiet, ordinary day was now something else entirely. By the next morning, the realization had settled in. Haley wasn't just missing from routine, she was missing. And in a town where nothing like this was supposed to happen, the questions started spreading faster than anyone could answer it. Where did Haley go? But the more people looked, the more unsettling the situation became, because the last place Haley had been seen wasn't far away, and the people closest to her would soon find themselves at the center of everything. Long before Haley disappeared, there were already cracks in the world around her, small, easy-to-ignore signs that something wasn't right. They didn't look like danger at first. They looked like arguments, like instability, like the kind of tension people convince themselves is temporary. But when investigators would later retrace the timeline, those cracks would begin to form a pattern, and at the center of that pattern was one man.